Yeah, let me turn off the demo. Okay, let's see it.
Hello there. So I got to play the demo.
Wait, this game did not look like this when I played it.
Hello
It looks
there.
way
So I got to
better.
play the demo for AI Limit a little early, and I'm going to be sharing my experience with that. But also, I'm going to do a pretty thorough critique for the sake of developer feedback. Sense Games is a
Okay.
small Chinese studio from Chengdu. Often when these studios put out their demos, they are seeking what players think, and I'm a player that sometimes thinks, so I hope this finds some ears. I really believe that demos are a great thing, and they're a great practice for gaming in general. I want
Yeah,
to
you can check
encourage
out the
them, so
demo.
I am
Yeah.
doing my small part in positive reinforcement. At the end of the video, I also want to do a little bit of a channel update because it's certainly been a while. So if that interests you, stick around, or timestamps in the description.
Hmm.
Anyways, let's talk AI Limit. How is the demo? The word I'm going to use is turbulent. I completed the sewer level available and the boss challenge, and once all was said and done, I feel kind of frustrated. And not because AI Limit has frustrating gameplay, but because there are certain sweet spots that AI Limit does so well, but it's often mixed in with a
Hmm.
few antagonizing principles that don't gel very well, and there's a lack of polish that holds it back a little. Now, before
Yeah, I think the dodge is jank. Like, dodge in this game is kind of jank. Like, one of the main aspect of this game is the dodge roll, right? Kind of janky. It's just not
we
consistent.
go any further, is the game good and is it worth your time? If you liked Code Vein, you will likely enjoy AI Limit. Being a Souls-like, and I hate that Souls-like is a genre tag, but that's a video essay for another time, but being a Souls-like is a bit of a double-edged sword. Everyone knows what to expect, and that's good, but also everyone knows what to
Yeah, boss can just literally one-shot you. That's what you expect. Like, I just got one-shot while I fighting that other boss. Really fun.
expect, and that's bad. Like my brother in Christ, Dark Souls is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of video games. Do you really want to stand next to him and have your physique picked apart and destroyed? That said, lots of people
Ah,
like Souls games, they want more of them. It's like how many people just keep going to their favorite burger shop and make
wait, one second. Give me a second. I can just watch it after. Uh, was it? Okay, let's continue watching the thingy. Man, the boss in this game are god. It's not fun, man.
the same order week after week after
Okay,
week.
let's
They
continue.
never get tired of it. So if you're expecting something that absolutely shatters the mold, then AI Limit is not it. But if you like that familiar feeling and you want to have another Souls run in an anime sci-fi setting, then yeah, take a seat. Jumping
Yeah,
into the
brain
demo
dead
for the
enemies
first
that
time,
looks
we
the
start off
same.
in the sewers of Heaven's Wall as Orisa. Orisa is a blader. What is a blader? Don't know. We know we aren't human because a really tall robot lady is going to tell us that we need to save human civilization. You are also not the only blader, though it's very apparent that this is a lot like the dark sign or being tarnished. You are immortal, you come back to life, you repair branches where you can rest and upgrade. To do these upgrades,
Yep.
collect crystals from fallen enemies. If you die, you lose some of your crystals, yada yada yada. You know it, I know it. AI Limit uses many Souls
Yeah.
mechanics.
When you die, you lose your crystals a little bit and then it's permanent. You can't just run back and then pick them up. I think it's a bad mechanic. Like every Souls, like even Dark Souls 2, gives you an option, you can just run back and pick up your souls. Like I don't know why they said that that's not a good
And
mechanic.
I'm not going to
You
labor the
know?
point any further.
I seems like there is no character creation. That's kind of bummer. Because Code Vein's main aspect is the character creation, dude. Code Vein character creation is pretty
Anyways,
good.
the thing that stood out to me after the intro and you get control of Orisa is that this game seems a little visually unfinished, and that's a bad start. It took a while for me to put
Yeah.
my finger on it, and
Looks like
it's
a phone game. Like that's kind of being not honest with phone games because a phone game I recently played was Withering Waves. And do you know how good that game looks? You can't even say this is worse. Looks like a phone game anymore. It looks worse.
Really a small
You
thing,
know,
but
for a PC game, this game does not look, not
it
even
makes a
holds the
world of
standard.
difference, and we're
Not
gonna
even
see this
close.
over and over again in this video. While
I think Code Vein looks better, and that game is older.
Orisa is a pretty cool looking character. It's definitely up my alley. I freaking love sci-fi, anime, AI, love those themes. And that really carries through here in the design, where Orisa
Yeah,
herself
she
is
looks
quite
fine.
muted in color palette and somewhat neutral. That red scaly arm really stands out. And you know, that speaks to me. But you start out standing in water, and it's not acting like water. So if you pan the camera to the top, you can see that Orisa's footsteps make ripples, but these ripples are completely flat. Comparatively, later in the
Yeah.
demo, there are instances where running in dirt kicks up little puffs of dust. You need to do the same thing with water.
Hey,
Running in
what
dirt
costume
kicks
is
up
that?
little puffs of dust. You need to
Oh,
do
that's
the
a
same
costume.
thing with water, and the reason why it's so important is because it's the opening scene. It shows an attention to detail, but most importantly, it shows you that Orisa has weight and that she exists in the environment. This opening, as it is, makes it look like Orisa walks on top of the water surface, and once you set that in the player's mind, it's an uphill battle convincing them that this is a high quality game. That's certainly the feeling I got. The other aspect with the water that I got was, I feel that you need to darken the ground at the water's edge, so it looks like the water is seeping into the ground. The basic takeaway here is that I think the developers need to have another look at the environment in general, and just do the little things to make it look like the objects in the world look like they have an effect on
Is
each
this
other
a phone
in a
game?
way that
I think
makes
it feels
sense,
like
especially
it.
when
Like
it's
they
the
made it
main
for a phone
character
and then they
interacting
switched
with
it and then
them in the
made it for
opening
a
scene.
PC.
Next thing, I know it's a very small thing, but I think that a video game's
That's what I
intro needs
think.
to be immaculate to get a good public reception. I'll just say it how it is. Western audiences associate China with low quality because for many years, China has produced pretty much everything we use. We often forget that China makes our high quality iPhones, but we remember the cheap knockoff that we bought for half the price that broke in under a month. It is not fair, but
Yep.
it is true. Chinese developed games need perfect English. Whenever a Westerner sees English that doesn't flow well or has errors and they know it comes from China, bad game. Cheap Souls knockoff. So technically I am happy to report that AI Limit's English text
Dude.
is pretty good, but it probably needs to be better to pass that bar. For example, let's look at the sync rate tutorial. You see how it
Is
has
it
the
Source? Is it Dark Souls is from Japan? Maybe I'm wrong. Who
blurb at
knows?
the
Bad and Enko, I think it's from Japan, right? From Software?
top? To quote,
I don't know
sync rate
where.
is categorized into multiple levels, which directly determine a blader's prowess.
I don't know about this mechanic. This mechanic is kind of weird. It's not bad, and it's not good either. Like it's just it's annoying. Like that's the best way I can describe this mechanic. Like it's so weird. Like it's I don't
Of
know.
battle. So obviously you need to change determine to determines. But what is jarring is that the blurb remains at the top of each page, and then underneath that blurb, you have the description of what each sync level does. This doesn't flow well, we only need the blurb once. If I wanted to read it again, I would go back and read it. Removing the blurb from the top of page 3 onwards would make it easier to read. So anyways, let's talk about sync rate because that's the unique mechanic of AI Limit. It's pretty simple. You have mud energy, and you can think of this as like a cross between mana and stamina. Stamina isn't a thing in AI Limit. If you want, you can just spam roll or dodge. It doesn't cost anything. Swinging your weapon doesn't cost anything either. But each weapon has a special move. You have a spell equipped. The railgun doesn't cost anything either.
She just.
But
What is that? She just dropped the weapon and then it's vanished. Look at this. That's kind of. I am pretty sure Asmongold, if this sees this, that guy is gonna complain about this. Look at that. He walks, drops the weapon vanishes and then spawns behind her back. That's not realistic at all. Yeah.
each weapon has a special move. You have a spell equipped. The railgun is the first one you get in the demo, and you also later get special abilities. There's 4 total. You get a parry, you get a shield, but later in the boss challenge, you get access to a dodge and a power-up ability. These all cost mud energy. Getting hit reduces mud energy. Scoring hits with your basic light and heavy attacks builds mud energy. Very simple, very intuitive.
But it kind of makes no sense though, because it gives you a massive buff if you're above 90%, right? But if you use a single spell, it will immediately put below 90%, and then you will lose your attack damage buff. You want to hit like a you will hit like a wet noodle. Like that doesn't sound like a good time, you know?
Flow is that if you use your basic attacks and dodge well, you will be able to use your special
This guy is janky as
moves more
well.
often and they will be more effective. I think it's a pretty cool mechanic that streamlines the interface and rewards players for doing the basics well.
I don't know. This game didn't look this
But,
good on
and
my
this is
PC. I have a 3080 and then I maxed out everything. It was not this
important, if your
clean.
sync rate
It
drops to
was a
0%,
very low
Orisa is
quality.
stunned and can't move. I don't think many people will like this. Most times this happens because you were hit and you have just taken damage, so you take damage and then you are at the mercy of the game's AI as to whether they are going to just keep hitting you. But I think taking damage
Yeah.
and dying is punishment enough. It's also important to remember that bosses tend to kill you in 3 to 4 hits in this demo, so getting hit twice because you lost your sync rate once is pretty severe. In my opinion, I think they need to think of some other side effect. Maybe you can't swing your weapon for a couple of seconds. I don't know, I just think that getting damaged, then getting stun locked, then getting hit again is an unfun thing. Also, I know that you can change the control
Yeah.
scheme and you can bind your buttons to whatever you want. I was using a PlayStation
Yeah, I think that's a
controller,
good job.
but it is a sin that you need to hold X to sprint by default. I think AI Limit needs to swap the jump and the sprint button, click the L3 to initiate the sprint, and then X to jump. Also, the jump seems visually
I don't really
unimpressive when you
mind.
consider Orisa's abilities. Like, I know that this is a traditional Dark Souls jump mechanic where you can only jump in a horizontal arc and it has to be from a sprint, but I think you should be able to jump further than you can dodge, if that makes sense. As it is now, it's a bit confusing
I think
because
the
it
jump
looks
is
like
so
she's
small.
trying really hard and her efforts are pathetic. Anyways, moving on, the early parts of the sewers are pretty inconsequential. The enemies are very easy and mostly distracted. I think the
The enemies are very easy and they are same. Have you noticed that the model is just the same model?
void or mud
None of them are freaking different at all. Everything is just this guy, this guy, that guy is this guy, but he is running at you at 4 legs. That's pretty much
monsters,
it.
I'm gonna call them mud monsters,
Mobility in this game is kind of
are okay,
lackluster.
but
Like they could have given us different colors or something. Everything just looks the same. Look at this, red, red, red,
but they
red.
do seem a little too generic and familiar. Like later in the demo, you
Yeah.
go into this room where there's these two humans. One has a knife, and the other guy, he has a flamethrower. That's badass. I kind of wish that you saw human enemies first, because ironically, they're more interesting. Like, when was the last time you saw a human enemy in a Souls game that isn't zombified or wearing some ornate helm that covers their entire face? There's also this big fella sitting here. I think this is an attempt to do something like the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls. It kills you in a couple of hits, so you die once, and then it's very clear that you're supposed to come back later, or engage masochist
Yeah.
mode and figure it out. I think it doesn't work very well here though, and I'm going to explain the
Yeah, that's the problem. You do
key
not fight this
differences.
guy
The
at
first
the
was
start.
that in Dark Souls you had to pass the Asylum Demon to progress. This guy is completely optional. The lesson was that it was really difficult, you die, and then you are very aware that you are not ready for the dangers of this
I think it's a good idea either way. I think instead of forcibly people to make people to fight this thing and then die, I think it's a better idea to put that guy in the left corner so it's very obvious that he is optional. I kind of disagree with this because the reason why this is a problem is in Elden Ring, as soon as you come out of the what do you call it? Come out of the coffin, like when you start the game, you just took the lift and then go outside, and then there is immediately the horror tree sentinel, and then you think you have to fight that guy. And most of the streamers I've seen fought the tree sentinel as soon as they just made the character. You know, like some people just don't understand that you are not supposed to fight this thing. You know, so they just mauled out and then just say quit the game. So I think they did a better job of just putting this guy on the side room.
world, and you need to think of another way to approach this situation.
Yeah. I think this is fine as it is. I don't
naturally-
mind. Like I don't care. That guy has like 3 attacks and then 2 attacks are Jake and then he has 1 grab. That just instantly hits you.
People try to run past it, and that works. Later, of course, you get a better weapon, and you learn about plunge attacks, and then you are set up to drop down on the demon, and you have the feeling of things clicking. It sets the expectation of how to approach obstacles for the entire game. This guy in AI Limit doesn't do that, so I'm not sure what it does other than to be the first reminder of, hey, I know everything up to this point has been trivial, but that's over for you. Sink. So we travel a little further and we come across our first boss or mini boss, the Sewer Cleaner. This becomes a new standard enemy and we're going to get the railgun.
Hey, that guy's name is Sewer Cleaner. I, look what he's doing. Like, this is the jank I'm talking about this game. Like, watch this.
There we
Like, let me mute that. He's going inside, right? Like, he will see you. Yo, people, hello, hello, how you doing? Like, this guy just sees you. Look what he's doing. Goes for the attack. What is that? What is that? He just slides forward and then hits you. And look at, you can argue that he's just skating, right? But look at this guy. He doesn't have any wheels or anything on his legs. He just holds his attack and then charges towards you. It's so cringe. Look at this. What is this? What is this slop? Man, do you use Steam XD? No, I don't. Like, it's so sloppy and cringe.
I think every
That is so lame. None of the bosses I ever fought in a Souls-like game does that. Dark Souls 2 plays better than this.
everyone is going to hate these robots, and I'm going to explain why. Remember how I said
Yeah.
that the void monsters are generic? Well, they look generic, but fighting
It just doesn't telegraph well and then they hit you almost instantly. That's the problem. Like it's so hard to tell if they are gonna finish the attack or they are gonna start another attack. Like it's just so unpredictable.
them
Yeah.
make sense and their movements make sense. I think
That's
if
what I
you're
think
making
about
a
this.
game where you want the player to react to what the
And then add on top of that delayed attacks, it just makes the fight tedious and miserable.
enemy is doing, then the movements and telegraphs need to be readable. As soon as you make those
Yeah.
movements inhuman and
See?
robotic, you lose that
Exactly.
readability. And the main reason why this happens is a lack of attention to detail. Look at any machine in real life, and you will know that machines don't just move erratically. Look
Like,
at
look
any
at this. He just slides in forward. He's not even
machine in real
walking.
life, and you will know that machines
That's so cringe and uncanny, dude. It makes no
don't
sense.
just move erratically. Often you can hear the spinning
It just looks so cheap. I didn't pay attention to this, but once I am looking at from the third person view, Jesus, that looks so lame.
of motors, an electrical buzz, some sort of gas pressure release. Creating better sound cues for these robotic enemies'
Yeah.
movements will go a long way to making their movements seem more authentic. For example, the slide attack would make more sense
Why he missed?
way to making them
He's just on the floor, right? Look at this. What is this?
authentic. For example,
Oh, you were dead. Oh, okay. He's dead, so he just
the slide
breaks
attack
the.
would make more sense if there were little rockets at its feet that pushed it forwards.
Yeah,
You
that
can
makes more
use the
sense.
sound of the rockets firing up just before the action takes place to make sense of the
Yes.
fact that the robot is just skidding towards you with both feet on the ground. Small
Yeah, yes, like exactly. This
aside,
is
I
my
think
issue.
the railgun firing effect needs a little more detail. My first thought was that it? When it should be, that's awesome. I want one of
Wait, it doesn't even shoot like it's shooting a
those.
beam.
Okay,
But the mob when it showed
so I've
up, it
touched on
shot a lot of beams.
criticisms, and we're not
Yeah, it's
even at the
freaking
first
lame.
branch or the first resting side. If there's so much wrong with AI limit, why did I even bother? Well, we get to our first branch, and that's where we meet Asteria, the branch. At
Wait, what?
a little more detail. My first thought was that it? When it should be, that's awesome. I want one of those. Okay, so I've touched on a lot of criticisms, and we're not even at the first branch or the first resting side. If there's so much wrong
Yeah.
with AI limit, why did I even bother? Well, we get to our first branch.
It's because people like anime playing as an anime chick in a freaking Souls-like game. That's why. Why do you think Genshin Impact and Withering Waves are popular? That's why. Any game that has an
And
anime
that's
chick
where we
will
meet
have a different
Asteria,
antis.
the branch weaver. Love the aesthetic of this character, basically the Firekeeper in most Souls games, but I am all
Yep.
about those robot stealth legs. Remember what I said about English and flow? To quote, an ancient underground drainage tunnel deep underground in the south region of Heavenswell. Less is more. An ancient drainage tunnel deep underground in the south region of Heaven's Wall. No need to say underground twice. And yeah, this is really small stuff, but I'm giving this critique for the developer's sake if by some 0.05% chance they actually ever see
Yeah.
this. Because it's tough, because they
I
were
think
trying to
that's
make
like
the
a
game to
translation issue, most likely, but it's a kind of a small nitpick. I don't really care. I was appreciated that her voice was voice acted and her mouth moved when used to play Genshin before. Yep, her mouth moved. In Dark Souls,
sell it to English
that's
speakers,
not
and the
gonna
people that they
happen.
hired to write and check the English, they've let them down and no one's going to tell them. The Steam reviews will just say that the
Hmm.
story is corny or that it is low quality, and that's the only level of detail they're going to get from the public. Also, Arissa does speak in the
Yeah.
beginning and she speaks again here.
It's a pleasure to know that you've arrived safely.
What's this place?
Anyways, point is, I think Asteria is cool, and for the most part, I think it sets up the story to be fairly interesting. She lets you pick your first real weapon. Choices are sword, dual
It looks
blade,
fine.
and long sword. I picked the dual blade. This is kind of a mistake.
I think my complaint is they should have let us do a preview of this Devil Blades because once you pick one, you cannot change it. Like I think that's bad. Like this, I think in Liza P they did a good job. Like you can pick and then you can swing like 3 or 4 times and then feel the hang of the weapon you are using, and then you can just switch if you don't like it. But in this game, it didn't let you do that. I think it's a bad move.
Because you get the dual blades as a pickup within the next 20 minutes, but that could be exclusive to
Yeah.
the demo. Anyways, the point is that the combat animations for these weapons are of a higher detail than the tutorial sword. Specifically, when you do your
Yeah.
light attack out of a sprint. There's no animation for this with the tutorial sword, but there is for the dual blade, and you'll find later that these 3 weapon types have the same base animations for most weapons that you'll get. Another thing, this is where you start seeing the humans that I was talking about before. Some of them will attack you, others are just NPCs, but I remember having a sense of relief.
Compared to the humans, you are relatively small. Look at that. You look like you are a Hatsune Miku.
Because I was worried that
Look how small you are. I just realized. That's a normal human and this is you.
most of the normal enemies are going to be variations of the mud monsters. I mean, they're still here and they are stronger, they're more aware. Some of them hide around corners.
They're
This is a
both
soul
lost.
special alongside rolling through barrels. But the point is that it gave me hope that perhaps it's not just the mud monsters in red tint and later the mud monsters in blue tint. Because that would kill the game instantly for me, because let's be real, in a Souls-like, the design and the variety of enemies is actually more important than the main character.
I think that's gonna be the case because Code Vein kind of did that too. I think that is gonna be the case, and then if that's the case, I will quit this game happy too. Like the bosses are not that fun to fight. The combat is combat in a sense from your standpoint it's kind of fun. But from enemy, like if you're facing an enemy, it's just jank as fuck.
Like, yeah, you want the main character to be cool, but what are you doing half of the time? You see an enemy
Yeah.
with a cool sword, it does this crazy move where it leaps into the air and it does this massive attack. Now,
Like
with a
look
cool
at that
sword, it
delay.
does
Like why she has that
this
delay.
crazy move where it leaps into the
Like look at that. She pulls the stand, holds the attack. Like you
air
miss
and
the
it does
dodge,
this
and
massive attack.
then she lands the attack anyway. Like why? It's cheesy. Cheesy ass attack. Look at this. Then look at
Enemy with
the
a
other
cool
one.
sword, it does this crazy move where it leaps into the air and it does this massive attack. Now
Look at that. Leaps into the air, holds the attack for like 3 seconds, and then lands the attack.
you want to kill
Just
that
for you to
enemy
miss
and
the
take
dodge.
cool sword because you want to be able to use the cool sword.
Super obnoxious. The bosses are
That
unfun.
boss with the awesome armor, mine. That great shield that's bigger than my body, mine. It's part of the cycle. You take the power of those that oppose you to make the world better, only to find that you are no less hopelessly corrupt than the beings that you sought to defeat. And now you look the same. That's the soul cycle of human nature and its futility. AI limit is a little different because you are a named character, but the underlying principle still applies. The first thing I thought when I saw the guy with the flamethrower was, can I use the flamethrower? I want to use the flamethrower. Let me use the flamethrower, please. And so you can see that there
Yeah,
isn't
that
really
would be
space
pretty
for
fun
this
though.
appeal.
Yeah, imagine you can just hold your hand like this, like like a Buddha or something, and then it just fire just comes out of his hand. Like especially your devil
with the
trigger
mud
on her left
monsters,
hand. That
because
would
the
be cool.
quality of
Yeah.
the gameplay instantly lifts once you start getting real weapons, real enemy variety. The colossal robot with the laser eye guarding the tunnel, actually awesome. Instantly thought
Too
of the
bad you
Helldrake
can't
in
fight
Dark
this
Souls
stupid
in a
thing.
good way, and that was cool. I mentioned the parry before, or counterfield in AI Limit. This is a game changer. Like, it instantly improves combat a lot. In my opinion, I think you should be able to use the parry from the beginning of the game. Don't make veteran Souls players suffer every time they start the game. It's been decades, we all know how parries work. Which leads to the question, how good is the parry and riposte in this game?
It's weird. If it lands, it feels good, but it's so obnoxious to land, especially with the second boss.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking good. It reminds me a lot of the parry in Dark Souls.
It has a wind up, like your parry has a wacky wind up, so you have to predict the attack before it even happens, and then you have to cast it before, so your parry will land properly. But it seems like the varying that's the problem with the varying attacks the bosses have is so obnoxious to do that, and it's kind of unfun.
The original and best. It's reliable, but not so reliable that it feels cheap. It's satisfying and visceral. The sound cues are really great. Minor complaint, when you shove your arm through a mud monster, I think the mud that splashes out would make more sense if it had a bit of a darker tone. It looks a little too similar to the actual surface of the monsters themselves. That's just my opinion. My experience, the mud monsters were fairly easy to reliably parry unless it was a lunge attack. That's sort of the standard. But the robots and the bosses that have those kind of stilted animations feel almost impossible to react to from both sides. As
Yeah.
I said
Because this is the problem. Like it comes instantly and then you have a wind up, right? It doesn't match. It's just fucking obnoxious.
before, I think you need better audio cues. Dodging and rolling, same button, same iframes, does what it says on the tin. Before you get the parry, this is your only defensive option, but the enemies are so pathetic in the tutorial that you never really learn it. I think the best place to get a feel for the enemies
How
are
do you change the character's
so
hair?
pathetic in the tutorial
Like I don't have braided hair like this at
that
all.
you never
What's
really
going on there? Like can you customize your character or not? I think they should be more clear about that.
learn it. I think the best place to get a feel for it is in the boss challenge because it kind of shows you through trial and error exactly
Because if there is a character customization, the character creator, like a Code Vein, I think this game has the chance. But if they're not gonna do that, you just play as that the chick. I think it's gonna fall flat. Like character creation with the gender switching as well. Like you can, if you want to play as a dude, you can play as a dude. I think they
what
should
you
be
can
doing
and
that.
can't get away with. Anyways, we go past the giant robot. Our next ability that we get is a shield. So parry is an ability and the shield is an ability and you have to swap between them. The shield does block all damage, but it drains your mud energy while you have it up, and you can also choose to blow it up once you've taken a beating.
I think parry shouldn't use mud energy either. Parry uses your mud energy in this game. Kind of annoying. I don't like it. Like the parry should be free because it's so risky. The risk itself for doing a parry is you are leaving yourself vulnerable to the massive attack you are trying to parry, right? I don't think it use a consumable like this. Like it's annoying. Like almost everything uses your mud bar. Like that's kind of obnoxious to be honest. I think instead of using mud energy every block you are doing, I think you should use mud energy when you are blocking a heavy attack.
Small
That makes
detail I
more
think is worth
sense. You know, that trade is way more interesting, right? Instead of just using every time you just hold your shield. Like that's kind of
mentioning.
lame.
When you're holding up the shield and you take a
Yeah.
hit, Orisa gets pushed back. It would really sell the weight of what's happening if your feet kicked up the surface, whether that be dust, water, mud, whatever. Without it, it just looks a little unfinished because you're skating across the ground like it's a smooth surface. But yeah, I'm not really a shield guy. I did end up trying it out in the boss fight at the end of the demo during the second phase, but I'm not really about that life. Okay.
Wait,
in
it's
the boss
very
fight at
useful. I did not expect that to be that useful.
the end of the demo
Oh.
during the second phase, but I'm not really about that life. Okay, so I'm editing this and I'm realizing why I don't like the shield. The first reason is the way that you use your special abilities, or frame abilities. You hold L1 and then you press X, square, triangle, or circle to select the ability you want to use, and then you press L2 to activate the selected ability. I don't think that the parry should be a frame ability. I think it's far too impactful for an ability to not be part of Orissa's base kit, especially because AI Limit doesn't have a combo system. Like, you're not weaving light and heavy attacks like Stellar Blade, so it really needs the counter field to simply have an engaging combat loop. I think L2 needs
Like,
the
look at that. Look at that hold
counter
attack.
field to simply have an
Fucking
engaging
dog shit. She just goes in the air. Look at this.
I think L2 should always do counter.
It's just cringe.
Everyone's going to default to it anyways, just to make general gameplay enjoyable.
Like, how are you supposed to react to
Everyone's
this,
going to
dude?
default to it anyways.
Like, look at this
I think
fucking
L2
bullshit.
should
This is
always
so
do
bullshit.
counter.
Like, watch this. She throws the attack.
Everyone's going to default to it
You dodged.
anyways, just to
Your dodge just ended, and then in that split second, her next attack is already landing on you. Like, what? Your game is not this precise. You cannot make the game this time precise when the game is janky. Like, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be annoying and piss people
make
off.
general gameplay enjoyable, and the value proposition is just
You know?
much higher than the other abilities. So I think that if you remove counterfield from the frame ability menu and then you have it mapped to L2, you can then press L1 and square, and I want Orisa to pull out the shield the moment I press that combination. I don't want to first select an ability and then use it in an action game. I want to be able to activate these abilities in as few moves as possible so I can react to things as they happen. And if I'm not supposed to do that, then I don't want to have the option at all. I'll just pick the best one and I'll never try the other ones. It may as well be like the spells. Now, my second problem with the shield is that the fantasy isn't there for me. In my opinion, there are two kinds of shield users: people that aren't comfortable with the game's mechanics yet, and that one guy that wants to be built like a fortress. Like, if you don't feel like a Spartan hoplite at the hot gates, you are just a guy sitting on the couch holding a button. Look at how small this shield is. Look at your stance. This isn't fucking Sailor Moon, is it? I think a lot of games get this wrong. The animations for how you brace behind the shield and how you move, they are even more important than the parry and riposte, because what you're doing is fundamentally kind of boring, so you have to make up for it somewhere. And I think the developers need to go back on this one. Look,
I think the best shield I ever seen. I don't think it's even a shield. But have you guys ever watched what's that TV show called? Seven Deadly Sins. I think that is the shield I want to use. Like Seven Deadly Sins, I don't think it's a shield, but I want a shield to work like that. Like Melodious, I think its name. Melodious, I don't know. The main character has an ability called Pull Counter. It just takes the damage, blocks it completely, and then returns the damage to the enemy while adding his own power and then making the damage even higher. I want to do something like that in this game. Maybe even parry. I don't care. Which one? Pick one. It either should be parry or shield. It would be so fun to do that. I will do that all day.
get the parry and riposte animations and then think to themselves, okay, how do we make using the shield ability match this level of energy? That's what I really think. Now, what I think is really cool is that after the shield, we come across our first
I think they did a good job. I think that's also a parry, right? In God of War, they did a good job of
Fallen
using the
Blader.
shield.
I love this fight. I love this setup. The way she moves is absolutely deranged. It's obvious that she has lost the plot, but look how smooth the movements are. It's both unsettling because it's foreign, but also easy to read because she's always leaning into her movements. But aside from the mechanics and readability, I think these moves are pretty cool. And I'm thinking, am I going to be able to do some of these moves later? I think this is a great sequence. We're then going to continue for a while before we get to the boss of the demo. Badass setting, great mood, foreboding, and then you see him. Lore the Lost Lancer, the last of the Bionicles. Something's not quite right with Lore. It took me a while to put my finger on it, but you know what it is? In my opinion, it's the same problem as the very beginning of the demo. Here, look at where you are. Now look at him. All around the room, there is mud, dead bodies, broken machinery, and it looks like it's been that way for a very long time. This boss is apparently the thing that did all of this destruction and lost
Yeah, I think he should have more blood and then more dirt on him. Yeah, he looks shiny as hell.
his mind. Look at his feet, they're clean. You would expect
Dude is fresh out of
them to
freaking
be
bath,
clean
I
cut.
think.
Look at the lance.
Fresh
Yes,
out of
there's blood on the
factory.
tip, but dry blood isn't red. It's like that reddy brown, almost black if it's thick enough. And what about the armor? Because if you kill a lot of people and you're in the mud, how is it that none of this is on the armor? Finally, I think the cyan energy tubes are a bit much. So I took a screenshot and I just doodled on top of it for 20 minutes or so to show you what I mean. Here's the original, and here is my edit with a bunch of muck and grime, and I just added a few extra spikes on the shoulder pads because I wasn't really happy with how round he looked. To me,
I think this is a good idea. I think what should I do done? I think this white should have more blood or spirit on it. Blood or mud or something else. He still looks super
this looks
clean.
more in line with the setting and the feeling of the game as it is presented to me as far as I've played it. But hey, this is all subjective, I could be totally wrong. Let me know which one you prefer in the comments below. As for the boss fight itself, it's a pretty decent fight. It's what you would expect from many Souls-likes. I couldn't quite shake the feeling that I didn't enjoy it as much as fighting the Blader. There's something about
Yeah.
the way he moves that just feels a little clunky. So I went back to watch the fight with
Jank,
Artorias in Dark
jank.
Souls, Ornstein, and then I had a look at Godric in Elden
Your camera doesn't keep up with the boss. That's the problem.
Ring.
Like,
And then I
it's just
thought, well,
jank.
AI Limit is supposed to be more of an action Souls-like, so I had a look at some of my Stellar Blade footage. It kind of confirmed what I suspected but wasn't willing to say without checking, but the simple answer is that Lord the Lost Lancer swings faster than the telegraph implies. And look, it's not a huge problem. There's certain moves that are dead simple to parry, especially the jump attack. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but when you compare the two, in Souls games generally, big weapons that do big damage also swing slower. The major caveat to that is when there is some sort of really long hang time or power up
Man, he's doing playing pretty well, this boss. Damn.
move that comes beforehand. Now,
The good gameplay. All I
comparatively,
did was
Stellar
sat there and then parried him to
Blade
death.
bosses
He is actually using some attacks to weave in the damage.
do move
Good
faster,
job.
but your ability to parry is far more
Nice
lenient
gameplay.
and matches the speed at which the bosses move. It's just easier to parry multiple attacks in succession in that game. Anyways, in Phase 2, Lord goes feral. That killed me a few times. It was pretty tough and I did kind of enjoy it, but I'm a little down on this fight because I just had more fun fighting against the Blader, and at this point the demo is just about over. But now we get to play the boss challenge. The Hunter of Bladers. I would change her name to the Huntress. Just less is more. Anyways, this Huntress, she kicked my ass so many times. And I just kept going back and saying, please miss, can I have some more? This kind of goes back to what I said about the Blader. I mean, this is way harder than Lord the Lost Lancer. The animations are so smooth
Yeah,
and
I don't
readable.
think
It's
so.
just a joy to see it. And the best part about it is that this is like an epic anime duel. There's a dance and a rhythm to it. And the other part of it is that you
Really?
have access to
You think this boss is good? Jesus. I thought this boss is a pain in the ass. I don't even want to fight this thing because it's so boring.
a lot of weapons and
Like, that's how I felt. Like, it just holds the attack so much and it's cheesy
abilities.
as
I tried a
well.
few of them, but I really like the lightning dash because
Like, it's just a whole attack simulator. This boss felt like Erlang in the Wukong, dude. I despised that fight. It was so boring and annoying because it just swirls around in the air and then holds the attack for like 10,000 years, which is super
it makes
boring,
me
you
feel
know?
like we're rivals on equal footing. I just think it looks cool to kind of choreograph this elaborate, unscripted
Yeah, I'm not a
fight
fan of
scene.
this fight.
This fight alone
If other
is the
bosses are like
reason
this, I don't
why
want to
I'm
fight
pretty
this game.
excited for AI
Play this
Limit,
game.
and it's also why I've been so in depth with my feedback. It's also why I'm a bit torn, because I feel like AI Limit does humanoid duels really, really well, but it doesn't do some of the fundamental soul
I don't know what kind of demo he played. The demo I played is on Steam. Played it for like 2.7 hours. The game was kind of mediocre and there's so many jank in the game. That's how I feel about this game. Like, especially, this one kind of telegraphs very well. I would say that. It's not janky, but it's annoying to fight.
things very well. So let me sum it up.
It just holds the attack and then it comes so fast. It's just
I think
slingshotting
the
all over the
environment
place.
and especially attention to how objects affect other objects within the game
Yeah.
environment needs another pass, in my opinion. It's a small thing, but it will have
Like
a
it's
huge
just so much
impact
cheesy
on how people
baity
perceive
attacks
what is
she can do.
mechanically a very solid game. The English needs to be looked at, and some of the dialogue needs another look. Be careful of repeating unimportant information. Again, small thing, huge impact. I feel like the mod monsters should also be dirtier. Sort of the same critique I had for lore. They're too clean. Like, I know it's not necessarily true, but the first word that comes to mind when I look at them is asset store. The robot enemies need a lot of work with their telegraphs, how they move in the
Yeah.
environment, the sounds they make. I think they're really cool
They
to
do
look at,
look
but
like they
finding
are
them
from
is
Asset
not fun at
Store.
all. Not a fan of the zero sync rate stunning you. I think Lore of the Lost Lancers animations could use looking at. In my mind, I think of many Souls boss fights falling into one of three categories: a lumbering Hulk, a rival duel, or a puzzle. Lore looks like a Hulk, but kind of fights like a duel. The movements in relation to the size of the weapon and the telegraphs aren't quite right though. And when you compare
I think you guys have to pay attention to this. You are competing with Withering Waves, Punishing Grey Raven, Genshin Impact. I don't know what other gacha games are there on phones. You gotta guess your game, otherwise it's not gonna go very well for you. Like straight up. Even compared to Code Vein, I think this game looks a bit
them to
bland.
enemies like the Blade
Like combat is good, yes, but it's clunky in a sense. The bosses are clunky. It's not very telegraphed. They just swirl around. Your camera just fucks up.
and the Huntress,
Yeah.
they're from the same game, but I know which one is right and which one isn't, and Lore is the one that isn't right. Now, usually it's like, okay, that's one boss, but it's the first boss, so it really, really matters. If I played the demo and Lore was the last boss fight, then maybe I wouldn't be interested in AI Limit, but the Huntress is there to save the demo, and that's really what's got my attention. I'm now interested. I think the developers might already be aware of this, but they might not be ready to admit it yet. Like, in my mind, I wouldn't go to the extra effort of putting in the Huntress in a boss challenge if I knew that Lore the Lost Lancer was a really awesome fight. So I see this addition as a kind of admission that you know it's not your best work. Anyways, that's a lot of critique. What was awesome?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a kind of a standard for this. They looked it up Final Fantasy 16. In Final Fantasy 16, you play as Clive for the first 2 hours of the game. But he has a real you play as a little Clive, right? He was so young and he doesn't have any abilities to in his arsenal and it sucks to play as him. And then they just switch it up and then go into the late game and then you fight Garuda and it was amazing, right? So I think they went that route because in this fight you will unlock almost all of your abilities and skills pretty much. And then it makes the fight more
The
interesting.
UI for
right?
AI Limit is
I think that's what they went for that
really
route.
good. I know I never mention it, but that's what good UIs do. They become invisible when you're actually enjoying the game. The gameplay is solid. It certainly doesn't reinvent the wheel, but once you get your parry and your first weapon, it just feels familiar and good. And later on, you will get a bunch of cool spells that will let you play your way, but we'll have to see what the full scope and depth of that looks like when the game releases. There were definitely moments where I was totally sold on the atmosphere. Like the scene just before Laura
Yeah.
arrives, menacing. The colossal robot, Asteria's
I thought that guy was goofy. I think this chunk was weird.
legs, random guy with a flamethrower. Like, I'm more
This was
impressed that they
cringe.
had the restraint
Like I was like what? That's my
to
expression for
only put
this.
one guy with a flamethrower than I am that there is a guy with the flamethrower. And I think that's great. I'm probably going to go to bed tonight thinking about that. The Huntress was amazing. Like, you know you're onto something good when you fight a boss and you wish that they were a playable character. And I felt that immediately. So look, I think the majority
Yeah, I did not like this fight at all. Like you can argue whatever you want. I think the delayed attack is this chick has and then the bait she has is just so annoying to fight against. Especially when you are trying to parry this bitch. And then the parry, I did land like 3 or 4 parries in this character. And she doesn't get stun locked at all. Like what?
of this video works as a critique for
Like, I don't know what's going on there,
for
but
the
it's just
developers,
not
but I
fun.
think this is really helpful for people that are looking to play the game as well.
At least
If
for
any
me,
of
it's
this
not
sounds
fun.
awesome to you, I do
Like,
encourage
the
you to
cheesy
play
attack
the
it
demo
has,
out for
her
yourself.
difficulty comes from her varying combos and then the bait
It'll
attack
be on
she
Steam.
does. That varying combos, like varying timers in her combos. Like, she just holds
on the
that attack
PlayStation
too
Store,
much.
and this is a small development team, so I think if you enjoy the game and you had a lot of fun, the best way you can help them is to wishlist their game. That makes such a huge difference for them, and it's a really small thing. Me personally, I am very optimistic that given some time, AI Limit will be a solid game, and I am looking forward.
I think they should make another game. Like, their second game is gonna be good. I think this game is not that great. Like, that's my same opinion about Wukong. Wukong 2
To
would be
see what
good,
they come
better.
up with. More Huntress and Flamethrowers, please.
But Wukong
Alright,
1
that
not
just
so
about
much.
wraps everything up, except for the channel update. So here it goes. I'm a pretty shit YouTuber. I said I was going to do a bunch of reviews, I didn't do them. I said I was going to do a bunch of series.
Alright, I think it's a good video. You can just check it out. And then I will link to the thingy. Link the link and be sure to subscribe. And he did have valid points. Like, attention to detail is very good on his videos. Like the water. I didn't really give a shit about the water, but he noticed it, which is nice. So give them your support. And then what we can do now? We'll see. Let's take a short break and then I will play something else. Probably Metaphor. Or play something new. I need to distract myself.